everyone, welcome. This is Bravely Being Yoga. I'm Beth and I am so happy that you're here. Today we're going to be talking about an introduction to anxiety, so a little kind of mini practice to just start introducing some concepts, some basic sensory ideas about what anxiety feels like, what it might look like, and ways that we can use a trauma-informed yoga practice to mitigate some of those symptoms, right? So as always, please consult with your primary care physician and your mental health provider before participating in any of these videos, okay? So anxiety, it's a really big topic, right? It presents very differently for different people. So I know for me, it often presents as some stomach discomfort, some nausea, some butterflies, however you want to describe it. Sometimes it's a tightness in your chest or like a heaviness. Sometimes it's tension in your arms and legs, tingling in your arms and legs. Sometimes it's a shortness of breath. There's just so many ways that we experience anxiety and panic in our bodies. So that, for me, leads me to believe that the best way to interrupt that anxiety process is to start back with the body. That can be hard, especially if you've been through hard stuff. If there's some trauma there, if there's some triggers there, it can be hard to start with your body, which is why we need a really safe way to do that. So hopefully that's what this is for you, and I hope that you understand that at any point in this process, you can make a choice. It's a very yogi thing to do, to stop doing something and make a choice to do something else in a yoga practice, because that's what your body needs, okay? So I will always encourage you to do that. I'll remind you as we go. So we're going to keep this short. We're not actually going to start in a seated position because that's going to just increase our anxiety if we try to move slowly and deeply at the beginning. So we're actually going to stand up. We're going to come to the front of our mats. I'm going to start there, get you started, and I'm actually going to turn and face you so that you feel like you've got an idea of what I'm asking you to do, okay? So let's just start here at one edge of our mat, okay? Let's stand hip width apart. I like to stand hip width because keeping my feet together just hurts my hips, so that's a choice that I make. Maybe we start with our hands down into traditional mountain pose, okay? Or maybe we bring our hands to heart center. That's always a wonderful option. Or maybe we even bring one hand to our stomach and one hand to our chest so that we can kind of notice where we're starting. We're going to do a lot of scaling in these practices, so maybe even put a number to it. 0 to 10, where is that anxiety at now? 10 is my anxiety is through the roof. I feel really uncomfortable in my body right now. 0 is I feel like I am, the Zen master. I am the peaceful one, right? So just no matter where you are on that scale, just notice it. Okay. Notice where your breath's coming from. And now we're going to start to kind of tap into our body's resources to help us deal with this anxiety. I'm going to turn back and face you. Feel free to stay where you were. So as we're standing and checking in with our breath, we might just notice the outside corners of our feet. So maybe the 2 outside corners of the balls of our feet and the 2 outside corners of our heels, really drilling into the floor, relaxing into the floor. Maybe there's a soft micro bend in our knees, and our hips are stacked over our knees, our shoulders are stacked over our hips. Maybe we bring our arms down to rest. We're going to add a little bit of movement. We're going to pair it with our breathing, okay? So as we inhale, our arms are going to come all the way up. And as we exhale, our hands may come to heart center, or they may come all the way back down to our sides, okay? And we're going to pair it with our breath, so that might look different for you than it does for me. Your breath may be a little slower, it may be a little faster. Whatever it is, just notice there's no right or wrong. And an exhale. Notice what your senses pick up on in this. I'm noticing there's a fly in my room and it's buzzing around and I'm hearing it. Sometimes when we actually are trying to check in with our bodies, we start to notice our senses more, which is great. If that starts happening, that's actually a really good thing. Okay, and as we're moving through this, we're going to add some bend in our knees. We're going to create some heat in our bodies. And so maybe we start with a nice chair pose, which means that we're bending our knees, letting our hips sink back, creating a nice line from our head to our hips. And we'll flow here a little bit. So an inhale and an exhale. Noticing what it feels like to build that heat in our bodies as our heart rate increases a little bit because of this movement. Let's check in about that. Let's see how that feels. Let's see if that increase in heart rate feels great or if it feels like a little bit of a trigger. We always have a choice to slow down or to stop. And maybe we all meet back at mountain pose as we feel ready. Maybe we place that hand on our heart, that hand back on our belly. Check in again with our breathing. Maybe we pick up on small sensations. The way that it feels to build that heat in our systems. It's really little things, guys. You'll be amazed. But it's these tiny cues that make such a huge difference in our ability to decrease our experience of that anxiety. So now we're going to stand along the long edge of our mat. Our toes are going to point out towards the outside corners. Our heels are going to point in. If it feels best to leave our arms down or to keep them on our hips, we can totally do that if that feels best for our shoulder joints. Otherwise, maybe we bring our hands up above our heads and we start with a bigger movement where we're bringing our elbows in towards our body and we're bending those knees over those toes, okay? With an inhale and an exhale. So again, we pair that breath with that movement. It builds some awareness, helps us to be able to track what that breath feels like, especially as it starts to even out, especially as it starts to regulate a little bit. And we're not going to stay here very long. Just making sure that we have enough heat built in our systems to be able to stretch and to burn off some of that anxious energy, right? Just participating in this practice might have created some anxiety for some of us. So let's just kind of shake it out, shake it off. So as we feel ready, as we feel tired, we're going to join each other one more time back here at the front of our mat. Once more, check in with that hand on that heart, hand on that stomach. Maybe notice the breathing, notice the heartbeat. Any little wiggles or shakes, just let them go. And we're going to do one little partial modified sun salutation to get us down to the floor. So you might need to pause and grab some books. You might want some blankets later. You might want some pillows. You can see that I have all of my stuff here, but feel free to pause and get that stuff if you'd like to have it with you. Otherwise, let's just keep going. We're going to inhale all the way up. We're going to exhale and dive down towards the floor. We may stop here with our hands on our legs and just pause. That may be enough of a stretch along the back side of our bodies, or maybe we drop all the way down to the floor. Maybe we use a block or some books if we have them for a little additional support. We're going to keep that soft micro bend in those knees. With our next inhale, we're going to come halfway up. And with our exhale, we come all the way back down. We're going to tuck our right foot underneath and our left foot underneath. And we're going to sit back on those heels. We're going to come to a modified child's pose. There are so many ways to do this. You may want to put some blankets or some pillows under your hips and sit back on those if that feels more comfortable. You may want to bring your hips wide or your knees wide and your hips together so your knees are pointing out to the edges of your mat. You may want to bring a bolster or some pillows between your legs to rest on. Or a personal favorite for me, if you have a block, you might set that here on the mat. Take your forehead and rest your forehead on that block. And we might just use this opportunity to rock our forehead from side to side across the front of that block. This is an amazingly soothing sensation for your body. Just notice what it feels like. When we feel ready, maybe we end in some stillness. Maybe we start to walk our hands back up towards our knees and move that block out of the way. We're going to sit one hip down to the side and swing our legs around. We're going to come back to a nice seated position just for a minute here, okay? So we're going to do some twists next. It's a really important part of kind of wringing out those organs, resetting that core, okay? So if you'd like, there are lots of ways to do this. Some people like to straighten one leg, so we could take our left leg and straighten that out, and we could cross our right over. Maybe that feels like enough. Maybe it feels like enough to just leave one leg straight and the other one bent in towards our bodies. And that's great, okay? If you'd like, you can bend your bottom leg, cross your top leg, so our right leg over the left. And there are lots of different ways. Again, we're noticing what our bodies need today. We're going to take our left hand, so the opposite side, and we're going to start to twist towards that right leg. Now, I am not one for wrenching ourselves into positions, right? That totally defeats the purpose of this practice. So we're going to just gently start to kind of ease our way over towards that right side, hugging that knee towards our body, or maybe we lengthen our left arm along the outside edge of our right leg. And with our exhale, we twist. The exhale creates the twist. We don't force the twist. And again, as always, let's check in with the sensations in these positions. Notice anything that comes up. Notice what this is like for our bodies individually. And as always, checking back in with the breath too. It's easy to forget and start holding our breath in some of these positions. So just a gentle inhale and exhale. You can reset as many times as you need. So when we feel ready, we might come back to the center. We'll switch sides. So again, remember many modifications. We can bend that right knee underneath and cross that foot over. We can leave it, lengthen that right leg down along the floor, or cross the left over the right. There are lots of options, okay? So as we twist to the other side, we'll lengthen that right arm up towards the ceiling. We're going to hug that left knee with our right hand and our right arm. And we'll twist towards the left. Maybe we hug that leg in. Maybe we lengthen that arm out. But again, we're not wrenching, we're not gripping. We're releasing and twisting. Checking in with how each side might feel different. One side might feel a lot more open than the other. We hold things in different places in our bodies, so it makes total sense. We hold all of our hard stuff in our bodies that's happened, so there may be one particular point, one particular part of your body that really has a hard time letting go. This is just a great opportunity to notice. That's it. Not making any big changes. We're just checking in. There's a lot of power in allowing our bodies to be what they are in this moment, accepting ourselves, cherishing ourselves at this particular moment, not expecting anything more. And as we're untwisting ourselves, we're going to start easing our way down towards the ground. So here's a tip before we get down to the floor. If you do have a blanket, and as always, you have a choice, but if you'd like to try this, I welcome you to. You might roll that blanket up, like so, okay? And we're gonna lay it long ways across our mat here. We're going to swing our hips around so that the base of our hips is resting up against this blanket here. Now, of course, you can always just lay flat on the floor in Shavasana, which is where you're laying with your back on the floor, your body relaxed. You can lay on your side, or you can even lay on your stomach if that feels safer to you. Otherwise, we can try this heart opener and notice what this feels like. So we're going to just slowly lay our hips up against that blanket. You might need to adjust the blanket just a tad so it's actually lining your spine, okay? And maybe this is enough. Maybe we leave our arms down by our sides. Or maybe we bring them up to this goalpost position if we want a little bit more of an intense experience of this heart opener. And as we start to just relax and ease our way into the floor, we might notice what it feels like to open our hearts in this way. Something that I've noticed for the many people that I've worked with around anxiety, and for myself certainly, is that there's this caving in that happens in the front of our bodies. It's a very natural kind of body response to have to fear and anxiety and panic, that we really respond by protecting our vital organs, by protecting our hearts, and trying to really close off that part of our bodies from the rest of the world. And of course, that probably serves us well. It's probably a really great strategy when we're in the midst of our hard stuff, our old stuff that's happened. But maybe that strategy isn't really serving you any longer. Maybe it's getting in your way sometimes. And so this is a really wonderful way to just get a taste of what it feels like to reverse that, to open up just a little bit in a safe way to the world. I know for some people, covering up with a blanket, laying underneath a blanket, makes this a more enjoyable and safer process. So feel free if that's something that would help you. And just experiencing that body experiencing of what this movement feels like in and of itself provides some really amazing information. Our body has these regulating systems. The system that we're trying to get our bodies into right now is our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the system that is in our rest and recovery mode for our bodies. So if you're kind of tapping into that, you might notice more saliva in your mouth. You might notice your stomach gurgling a little bit because your food's digesting maybe. We really want to tap into that in these moments instead of being in our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight, flight, freeze response in our body. As we feel ready, we might start wiggling those fingers and toes. Maybe some little circles with our wrists and our ankles. Noticing any little pops, any little creaks. We might roll over to one side, cradling ourselves for a minute on that arm before pressing up to a seated position. Maybe we keep our eyes softly closed. Maybe we flutter them open. And here we are again, back in the seated position. And maybe once more we bring that hand to our heart and that hand to our stomach. And let's go back to that scale, that 0 to 10, remembering what that number was when we got started. 0 being absolutely no anxiety, a very peaceful body, and 10 being, the anxiety's through the roof. Just check in with where you are now, and maybe it hasn't moved. Maybe for some of us, honestly, it could have gone up. This might be a really challenging experience, and that's okay. Maybe it went down by a point or two, or maybe it really drastically shifted. Your body feels really differently. There's no right or wrong. This is just an experience, and this is a way to start relearning. So I applaud you for being here. I appreciate you trusting me with being a part of this process. I can't wait to join you here again really soon. I hope that you'll try some of the other videos, continue to work on this emotional journey, and come back to this one as often as you need. Make it a part of your routine. And I'll see you soon on the mat one way or the other. So namaste.